My husband cheated on me with my sister. I lost everything. Then Thanksgiving came, and my own family set a place for her at the table. When I walked in, Mom said, "We have to stay neutral." I stood there for 10 seconds. Then I turned around and never came back. The walk from my mother's front door back to my car took maybe 30 seconds. But those 30 seconds changed the trajectory of my entire life more than the previous 6 months of devastation combined. 6 months earlier, I discovered my husband of 8 years in bed with my sister. Not suspected it. Not found suggestive texts. Walked in on them in my house, in my bed, on a Tuesday afternoon when I'd come home early from a business trip because my flight got moved up. The image is burned into my brain forever. Brandon scrambling to pull the sheets up. My sister Natalie, younger by 3 years, the one I'd mentored through college applications and breakups and career decisions, frozen with guilt written across her face. The betrayal was so complete, so shocking, that I actually laughed at first. A hysterical bark of sound that didn't feel like it came from my body. Then reality crashed down, and I stopped laughing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The Thanksgiving moment is what broke me permanently. So let me tell you about those 10 seconds at my mother's door and what happened afterward. My name is Tanya, and before everything fell apart, I had what looked like a successful life. Marketing executive at a pharmaceutical company, beautiful home in a suburb outside Philadelphia, marriage to my college sweetheart Brandon, and a close relationship with my family. My parents, Robert and Joan, lived 20 minutes away. Sunday dinners were routine. Holidays were traditions we'd maintained for decades. Natalie and I had been close growing up. She was the artistic one. I was the practical one. She floated through life on charm and creativity while I built spreadsheets and 5-year plans. Our differences complemented each other. Or so I thought. I helped her financially when she was between jobs. I let her stay at my house when she had roommate drama. I introduced her to professional contacts who could help her photography career. I love my sister. I trusted her completely. Brandon and I met in college, dated for 4 years. Got married at 26. He worked in software development, made good money, and we built a comfortable life together. The marriage wasn't perfect. Whose is? But it was solid, or I thought it was solid, right up until the moment I found him with Natalie. The affair had been going on for 7 months. 7 months of lies and sneaking around in family dinners where they sat across from me, pretending everything was normal. 7 months of Natalie calling me to complain about her dating life while she was sleeping with my husband. 7 months of Brandon kissing me goodbye in the mornings before going to work, where he'd text my sister about when they could meet up. The discovery destroyed me. I moved out that same day, went to a hotel, and didn't sleep for 3 days straight. I cried until I vomited. I called my mother, hysterical and broken, and she came to the hotel immediately. How could she do this to me? I kept asking. How could he? How could both of them? Mom held me while I sobbed. She said all the right things about how awful it was, how she couldn't believe Natalie would betray me like this, how I deserved so much better. I thought she understood. I thought my family would support me through the worst thing that had ever happened to me. I filed for divorce immediately. Pennsylvania allows no-fault divorce, but I made sure my lawyer documented the adultery anyway. I wanted it on record. I wanted Brandon's betrayal, preserved in legal documents that would follow him forever. The divorce was brutal. We had to split assets, sell the house, divide retirement accounts. 8 years of building a life together got dismantled in legal proceedings that felt like having my skin peeled off layer by layer. Brandon's lawyer tried to argue for equal distribution of everything, including my retirement fund that I'd been contributing to since before we met. My lawyer fought back hard. We had evidence of the affair, witnesses who'd seen them together, text messages I'd recovered from Brandon's laptop. Pennsylvania might be a no-fault state, but judges still consider adultery when making financial decisions. I walked away with more than Brandon wanted to give up, but less than I'd contributed to our shared life. Through all of this, Natalie was silent. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't try to apologize. She just disappeared from my life like she'd never been my sister at all. I heard through mutual friends that she and Brandon were officially together, that she'd moved into his new apartment, that they were playing house like their relationship hadn't been built on the rubble of my marriage. My parents were supportive at first. Dad called Brandon and told him he was disgusted by what he'd done. Mom came over to my new apartment and helped me unpack. They said the right things about family loyalty and how Natalie had crossed an unforgivable line. But as weeks turned into months, I noticed a shift. Mom started making comments about how Natalie was still her daughter, how this was hard for everyone, how maybe eventually we could all find a way to move forward. Dad stopped mentioning Brandon or Natalie at all, changing the subject whenever I brought them up. "We can't just cut her out of the family," Mom said during one particularly tense conversation. "She's our daughter. You're both our daughters." "She slept with my husband," I said flatly, "for 7 months. In my house, in my bed. She's not the victim here." "I know, sweetheart. I know it's awful. But she's also suffering. This situation has been terrible for her too." I stared at my mother in disbelief. Terrible for her? She made a choice. She chose to betray me. Now she gets to live with Brandon and play house while I'm here alone trying to rebuild my entire life from scratch. How exactly is she suffering? Mom looked uncomfortable. "Your father and I are trying not to take sides. This is between you and Natalie. We love you both." That conversation happened in early October. I left feeling unsettled, but I convinced myself it was just my parents trying to navigate an impossible situation. They'd come around. They'd realized that neutrality wasn't an option when one daughter had deliberately destroyed the other's marriage. Thanksgiving was always a big deal in our family. Extended relatives would come. Mom would cook for days, and we'd have this massive feast with everyone gathered around the dining table. It was tradition. It was comfort. It was home. The invitation came via email in mid-November. Mom had sent a group message to the usual attendees with timing details and a request for everyone to RSVP with what dishes they'd bring. My name was on the list. So was Natalie's. I called Mom immediately. "You invited Natalie to Thanksgiving." "She's family, Tanya. We can't exclude her from family holidays. She destroyed my marriage. She's not welcome at events where I am. Make a choice." Mom's voice got tight. "I'm not choosing between my daughters. You're both invited. What you do with that is up to you. If she's there, I won't be. That's your choice to make. But the invitation stands for both of you." I hung up feeling sick. My own mother was prioritizing my sister's feelings over mine. After everything Natalie had done, Mom was still trying to maintain some facade of normal family dynamics. I called my Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, who was also on the Thanksgiving guest list. She'd been supportive during the divorce, sending care packages and calling to check on me regularly. "Did you see the email?" I asked. "I did. I already told your mother I won't be coming if Natalie is there. What she did to you is unforgivable." The relief I felt hearing those words was overwhelming. At least someone in my family understood. "Mom's acting like this is just a disagreement we need to get over," I said. "Like Natalie and I had a fight about borrowed clothes or something petty. She doesn't seem to grasp that this isn't fixable." "Your mother has always had a blind spot when it comes to Natalie," Linda said carefully. "She's the baby. She's always gotten away with more than you did." It was true. Growing up, Natalie could do no wrong in Mom's eyes. When we fought as kids, I was expected to be the bigger person because I was older. When Natalie struggled in school, I was supposed to help her. When she needed money or support, I was supposed to provide it because that's what good sisters do. The double standard had bothered me my whole life, but I'd convinced myself it didn't matter. We were adults now. Surely Mom would see the situation clearly. I was wrong. The days leading up to Thanksgiving were agonizing. Part of me hoped Natalie would decline the invitation, that she'd have enough shame to stay away. But I knew better. Natalie had never been good at feeling shame. She'd always been able to justify her choices, to make herself the victim in any story. I decided to go, not because I thought it would be okay, but because I refused to let Natalie take my family from me too. She'd taken my husband, my home, my sense of safety in the world. I wasn't going to let her take Thanksgiving. I drove to my parents' house on Thanksgiving afternoon, my stomach in knots. I'd barely slept the night before, playing out different scenarios in my head. Maybe Natalie wouldn't show up. Maybe Mom would have come to her senses and uninvited her. Maybe this would be fine. I pulled into the driveway and sat in my car for 5 minutes, gathering courage. Through the window, I could see people moving around inside. The house looked warm and inviting, exactly like it had every Thanksgiving of my life. I walked up to the front door and rang the bell. Mom answered, apron on, smile on her face. Tanya, I'm so glad you came. I stepped inside and immediately saw Natalie in the living room. She was sitting on the couch talking to my cousin Rachel, laughing at something like this was a normal family gathering and she hadn't destroyed my entire life 6 months earlier. The air left my lungs. I stood frozen in the entryway, coat still on, purse still on my shoulder. Natalie saw me. Our eyes met. She didn't look guilty or ashamed. She looked uncomfortable maybe, but mostly defiant, like she had every right to be here. Mom touched my arm. Let me take your coat. Dinner will be ready in about 30 minutes. I couldn't move. I was staring at the dining room table visible through the archway. Mom had set places for everyone. I could see name cards in her handwriting. My usual spot, and, 3 seats down, Natalie's name. My mother had set a place at the Thanksgiving table for the woman who'd been sleeping with my husband. She'd invited her into our family tradition like nothing had happened. Like betrayal was just a minor inconvenience we could all overlook for the sake of holiday dinner. Mom, I said quietly, why is she here? Joan looked between me and Natalie, clearly uncomfortable. We talked about this, Tanya. We have to stay neutral. This is hard for everyone, not just you. We're all family, and we need to find a way to move forward together. Stay neutral. Those words echoed in my head. Stay neutral. As if there was a neutral position between the daughter who'd been faithful and the daughter who'd destroyed her sister's marriage. As if neutrality was even possible in a situation where one person was objectively, undeniably wrong. I stood there for 10 seconds. I counted them later in my car, trying to piece together what had happened. 10 seconds of silence, while my family watched me and waited to see what I'd do. In those 10 seconds, everything became crystal clear. My mother had made her choice. She'd chosen the illusion of family harmony over supporting the daughter who'd been victimized. She'd chosen not to make waves over holding Natalie accountable. She'd chosen neutrality, which in a situation like this was just cowardice with a prettier name. Billy's input. Those 10 seconds matter more than everything before them. Not the affair, not even the divorce, but realizing your own family would rather pretend nothing happened than stand with you. Stay neutral sounds harmless, but here it really means we won't protect you if it's inconvenient. That's the part that hits hardest. Walking out without arguing or begging says everything. No scene, no speech, just a decision that you're done accepting less than basic loyalty. What lingers is how calm it is. Not explosive revenge, not chaos, just a door closing for good. I turned around and walked out. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't take my coat off. Didn't engage with anyone calling my name. Just turned around and walked back out the door I'd entered 90 seconds earlier. The walk to my car felt like moving through water. Everything was slow and surreal. I could hear Mom calling after me, her voice getting more distant. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away while she stood on the front porch watching. I never went back. That was 4 years ago. In those 4 years, I've built an entirely new life. Lost the family I was born into, but gained a chosen family that actually understands loyalty and boundaries. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. Mom called 63 times in the first week. I counted. I didn't answer any of them. She left voicemails that progressed, from confused to angry to pleading. Why had I left? Why was I being so dramatic? Why couldn't I just be civil to my sister for one dinner? Didn't I care about the family? I blocked her number after the first week. Dad texted. Short messages that said he understood I was hurt, but that I was making this harder than it needed to be. that I was creating division in the family, that I needed to be the bigger person. I blocked him too. Extended family members reached out. Some supported me, Aunt Linda. A few cousins who'd been through their own betrayals and understood. Others tried to play mediator, suggesting family therapy or reconciliation meetings. They got blocked as well. I drew a hard line. Anyone who maintained a relationship with Natalie was not welcome in my life. Some people respected that. Most didn't. The family fractured along predictable lines. The holidays that first year were brutal. Thanksgiving alone in my apartment. Eating takeout Chinese food and watching movies. Christmas by myself, ignoring the dozens of messages from relatives asking me to reconsider, to come to dinner, to stop punishing everyone for Natalie's mistake. But here's what they didn't understand. I wasn't punishing them. I was protecting myself. Every time I'd been around my family after discovering the affair, I'd felt like I was drowning. They expected me to perform normalcy, to pretend the betrayal hadn't happened, to make things comfortable for everyone else while I bled internally. Walking out of that Thanksgiving dinner was the first time I'd prioritized my own well-being over their comfort. It felt terrible and liberating in equal measure. I threw myself into rebuilding. Changed jobs, got a position at a competitor company with better pay and more responsibility. Moved to a new city 2 hours away where I didn't have to worry about running into Brandon or Natalie at the grocery store. Started therapy to process the compounded trauma of betrayal by both my husband and my family. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Kim, helped me understand something crucial. My family's response to the affair was actually a continuation of patterns that had existed my whole life. Natalie was the golden child who got away with everything. I was the responsible one, expected to sacrifice for family peace. The affair was just the most extreme example of a dynamic that had always been there. Your mother asking you to stay neutral about your sister sleeping with your husband is the same pattern as her asking you to be the bigger person when Natalie broke your toys as kids, Dr. Kim explained. You've always been expected to absorb the harm and pretend it didn't happen. The only difference now is the stakes are higher. That realization was both painful and freeing. I hadn't lost a healthy family system. I'd walked away from a toxic one that had never really valued me the way I deserved. I built a new support system. Made friends through work, through a book club I joined, through a running group that met Saturday mornings. These were people who hadn't known me before, who didn't have preconceived notions about who I should be or how I should heal. I dated sporadically. Nothing serious for the first 2 years. I wasn't ready, and I was honest about that with anyone I went out with. Slowly, I learned to trust again. Not easily, and not quickly, but incrementally. I met David 3 years after that Thanksgiving. He's a teacher, divorced with a daughter from his first marriage. He'd been through his own betrayal and understood what it meant to rebuild from rubble. We took things slowly, both of us cautious and scarred, but willing to try. We got married last spring. Small ceremony, just our closest friends. Aunt Linda was there. She'd cut off Mom and Dad completely after they continued, including Natalie in family events. A few cousins who'd chosen my side attended. David's family welcomed me with the kind of warmth and acceptance I'd been missing. My parents weren't invited. Neither was Natalie, obviously. I found out later through a cousin who still spoke to both sides that Mom had been devastated at being excluded from my wedding. She'd sent a card that I returned unopened. Dad had apparently said I was being cruel and vindictive. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd expected me to attend a Thanksgiving dinner with the woman who destroyed my marriage, but I was cruel for not inviting them to my wedding after they'd chosen her over me. Through mutual connections, I heard updates about Natalie and Brandon. They'd stayed together, gotten engaged, then broke up when Brandon cheated on her with someone from his gym. The poetic justice was almost too perfect. Natalie had learned what it felt like to be betrayed by someone you trusted. I felt nothing when I heard. No satisfaction, no sympathy, just emptiness where family feeling used to be. She tried to reach out a few times over the years. An email, 2 years after Thanksgiving, that started with, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but..." I deleted it without reading further. A message through a mutual friend asking if we could talk. I told the friend to stop carrying messages or lose my friendship. A card on my birthday 3 years running. All returned, unopened. I had nothing to say to Natalie. No interest in her apologies or explanations. She'd made her choices, and I'd made mine. We were strangers now, and that was fine with me. Billy's input. The most powerful part isn't the walkout anymore. It's what came after. You didn't just leave a moment. You left a pattern that had been there your whole life. Once you saw it clearly, there was no going back. What really stands out is the lack of revenge. No dramatic payback, no chasing closure, just distance, healing, and building something better from scratch. That kind of quiet follow-through hits harder than anything loud. And the contrast says everything. The family you were born into asked you to shrink. The life you built lets you exist fully. That's not loss. That's a trade. My mother made one last attempt at contact about a year ago. She sent a letter, actual handwritten letter, not email, saying she'd been diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer. Treatable, good prognosis, but she was having surgery and wanted me to know. The letter said she understood if I couldn't forgive her, but she hoped we could reconnect before it was too late. I read the letter 3 times. Then I called Aunt Linda, who confirmed the diagnosis was real. Mom was scared. She wanted her family around her. She specifically wanted me. I thought about it for days, talked it through with David, with Dr. Kim, with my closest friends. Part of me felt guilty for even considering not responding. She was my mother. She was sick. Wasn't I supposed to put aside our differences in a moment like this? But the larger part of me remembered that Thanksgiving, remembered how she'd prioritized Natalie's comfort over my devastation, remembered the voicemails telling me I was being dramatic, remembered 4 years of her maintaining a relationship with the daughter who'd betrayed me while expecting me to just get over it. I wrote back. 1 sentence. I hope your treatment goes well. That was it. No offer to visit. No reconciliation. Just basic human decency, wishing her health, sent from a distance I had no intention of closing. Aunt Linda told me later that Mom had cried when she got the note. She'd hoped for more. She thought her illness might be the thing that brought us back together. But I'd learned something crucial in those 4 years. You can't rebuild a relationship with people who fundamentally don't respect you. My parents had shown me clearly and repeatedly that my pain mattered less than their desire for a harmonious family picture. No amount of illness or time was going to change that fundamental dynamic. I sent flowers to the hospital. I made a donation to breast cancer research in her name. I did the things polite society expects. And I maintained my boundaries. Mom survived the cancer. She's in remission now, according to Aunt Linda. She still asks about me occasionally. Still hopes I'll come around. Still doesn't seem to understand that the problem wasn't that I held a grudge. It was that she'd never actually acknowledged what she'd done wrong. My life now is peaceful, in ways it never was when I was trying to maintain relationships with people who hurt me. I have a husband who's faithful and kind. I have friends who show up when I need them. I have a career I'm proud of and a home that feels safe. I don't have parents or siblings. That loss is real, and sometimes it still hurts. But I've learned that the absence of toxic people is better than their presence. The space they left got filled with people who actually value me. That 10 seconds at my mother's door changed everything. In those 10 seconds, I realized that I had a choice. I could stay and perform the role they wanted me to play, the forgiving daughter who pretended betrayal didn't matter, or I could leave and build something better. I chose to leave. I chose myself, and I've never regretted it. Billy's input. That letter could have pulled everything backward. Fear, guilt, obligation, but it didn't. You didn't ignore it, and you didn't give in either. That single-sentence response says more than a long emotional reunion ever could. What stands out is the clarity. You separated compassion from access. You wished her well, showed basic care, but didn't reopen a door that had already proven unsafe. That's a level of control most people never reach. And the key detail is this. Nothing actually changed on her side. No accountability, No real understanding, just hope that time or illness would erase what happened. You didn't let that rewrite history. The ending doesn't feel late. People ask me sometimes if I ever think about reaching out, if I miss my family, if I regret cutting them off. The truth is complicated. I miss the idea of them. I miss what I thought we were before I learned who they really were. I miss the illusion of a close, supportive family, but I don't miss the reality. I don't miss being expected to set myself on fire to keep others warm. I don't miss the double standards and the pressure to forgive the unforgivable. I don't miss feeling like my pain was an inconvenience to be managed, rather than a wound to be acknowledged. So, no. I don't regret walking away. That Thanksgiving was the last time I prioritized their comfort over my well-being. Every day since has been a choice to value myself, to protect my peace, to build a life with people who actually show up for me. Natalie is married now, I heard. Not to Brandon. They imploded just like relationships built on betrayal tend to do. She married someone else, had a kid, posts about her perfect family on social media that I don't follow but occasionally hear about through the grapevine. Good for her, I guess. I hope she's happy. I hope she's learned and grown. But I also don't care. She's not my sister anymore. She's just someone I used to know. Someone who made choices that revealed who she really was. Brandon remarried too. I know this only because I had to sign some final legal document 3 years post-divorce related to the house sale, and his attorney mentioned it. I felt nothing. He's a stranger too, someone from a previous life that has no bearing on who I am now. My parents are still together, still hosting Thanksgiving dinners I'm not invited to, and wouldn't attend if I were. They've stopped reaching out except for the occasional holiday card that I recycle without opening. The message is always the same. Anyway, we miss you. We love you. We wish you'd come home. But they don't actually wish I'd come home. They wish I'd come back and pretend everything is fine. They wish I'd absolve them of guilt and perform forgiveness for a betrayal they still haven't acknowledged. And I'm not interested in any of that. I'm interested in the life I built, in David and his daughter, who I've helped raise and who calls me Tanya Mom, in my friends who threw me a surprise birthday party last month, in my career that's thriving. Because I'm not emotionally exhausted from managing toxic relationships. In the peace I feel coming home to a space filled with people who actually respect me. That 1-0-second pause at my mother's door was the pivot point. Everything before it was trying to salvage something unsalvageable. Everything after it has been building something real. I don't tell this story often. When I do, people usually respond in one of two ways. Either they get it completely because they've been through something similar, or they tell me I'm too harsh, that family is forever, that I should forgive and move on. The second group reveals that they've never been betrayed in a way that required them to choose between their dignity and their family connections. They've never had to stand in an entryway and decide whether to endure abuse for the sake of tradition or walk away into uncertainty. I don't judge them for that lack of experience, but I also don't take their advice. Because I did walk away into uncertainty, and what I found on the other side was better than anything I'd left behind. I found self-respect. I found boundaries. I found people who didn't expect me to diminish myself for their comfort. I found a life worth living, built on a foundation of actual love instead of obligation and dysfunction. The Thanksgiving table my mother set had a place for Natalie, but not for my pain. It had seats for everyone except the truth about what had happened and who was responsible. It was a beautiful illusion of family harmony that required my silence and my suffering to maintain. I stopped being willing to pay that price. 10 seconds. That's all it took to change my life. 10 seconds of silence while I looked at that table and understood what was being asked of me. 10 seconds to realize that I could choose differently. I turned around and walked away. And I've been walking towards something better ever since. The family I was born into is gone. The family I've built is real. And every day I wake up grateful for those 10 seconds of clarity that showed me the difference between the two. My mother wanted me to stay neutral. What she didn't understand is that in some situations, neutrality is impossible. When someone has been deeply harmed, Asking them to pretend it didn't happen isn't neutral. It's taking the side of the person who caused the harm. I chose my own side. I chose to acknowledge my pain instead of suppressing it for others' comfort. I chose to protect myself instead of protecting people who'd proven they wouldn't protect me. And I've never, not once, regretted walking out of that house and into the life I have now. The revenge isn't dramatic. It's not confrontational. It's simply this: I'm happy. I'm thriving. I built a life they're not part of with people who actually value me, and I'm better for it. They wanted me to stay and pretend. I left and built something real. That's the whole story. Those 10 seconds at the door were the best decision I ever made. The moment I chose myself over their expectations. The moment I realized that walking away from toxicity wasn't giving up. It was growing up. I turned around and never came back. And I've never been more at peace.